we're going to start by cutting the boss, or the center button, this bit in here. In our carving, it's a simple rounded over sort of flattened disc. So we're going to cut this circle first. Now, the best way to do that is to use one of your gouges, and of course, if you've looked at other videos, you'll see that one of the things about a gouge is that you can push it in, shunt it, like this, and it's cut. And you can keep going round till you arrive where you started, or you should arrive where you started. I haven't quite. But that gouge will cut a complete circle. Now the thing is, that circle for that gouge that you've chosen really has to match this circle that you've drawn here. And I think you can see that this one is smaller than that. So what I've picked here, I've actually got a gouge that will fit that perfectly, and with as few a movement as possible. And that's really important. It doesn't matter if you're going to be shunting along, but the fewer you can do that, the better. This gouge, for example, will do a much bigger circle. So it's already much bigger. So that would be too big, this one's too small, and the one I've picked is just right. The important thing is that you will pick a gouge to match the circle and adjust the circle to the gouge you have. So each of these circles, I will, when I lay it out, I will step it off with a compass. So I will have, to work to, I will have a circle like this. And this is a circle that is cut by the sweep of the gouge. My gouge, which I've picked, is bang on that circle. So that's lucky. And as I said, this one would be too big, and the other one would be too small. So that's a really important point, because we're going to repeat this on every circle. You could, if it was a softwood, push it in with the your hand, but I'm going to use a mallet. So I've set it in. I'm going to swing it round. Like that. Now ideally, when we come to do it, what we want to do is slightly angle out this way a little bit, 5 or 10 degrees. What we don't want to do is undercut. So vertical or slightly out, but whatever you do, keep consistent. So once you've gone round like that, you can start removing some of this boss here to make the curve. And of course this bit here is the high spot. So if you take a number 3 gouge, a flat gouge, upside down, you can start taking down from there. Now you have a choice here of whether or not you go with the grain like this. So this is along the grain of the wood is going this way, going along here, coming up there gently. Or you go across the grain like that. So it's up to you how you do it, or you can swing it around and do both. So what you're trying to do is come in with a sharp tool and slice that around, not dig into the underpass here, or that wall. And we're down just a couple of millimetres, 1/16 of an inch, something like this. And what you might do is on the main one, when you come to do it, is you might do all one side, turn the piece round and do all the other. But after a while you get into the hang of doing this, and you'll flatten this as best you can over here. So if you find, for example, that you haven't gone down deep enough, and there's a bit hanging off, then what you have to do is you'll have to go back with your starting gouge, like here. You might have to go back and set that back in again very carefully to nick off any shavings. But what you want to end up with is a nice clean edge all the way around. Next thing. Now that top bit here is sometimes quite difficult, depending on the curve that you're trying to get. It's not a big curve, but you do want a shadow around here. And what you can do just to clean that up is you can take a chisel and very carefully just skim some of that off like that. It's just on that top. So that's what you're trying to do. You're going to take a nice flat gouge. Nice flat surface, evenly done. Did you notice that just here I tore the wood out? If you go back and replay the video, you'll see I was doing very well, and then what I did was when I set in this tool again, instead of lifting this corner and shunting it round and setting it in like that, I just left it down and moved it, and this crunched up those fibres against the grain. So that's an important point, not to do that. So as you set in again, lift this corner clear of the wood, bring it round, push it back down. You see how easy it is to cut in. The other thing I would say is, of course, here we have the little point where the compass went in, and it's this bit here that we're actually moving. You should be able to get rid of that compass point entirely. So the whole, when you finish this, what we're looking for is everything's clean and tidy, neat around here up to the edge, and this is all nicely finished. You might have a little few facets because it's hand carved, but that's what we're aiming for, and definitely not that. The grain of the wood that we're going to cut is in this direction here. You can see it here. What that means is that when we come to hollow these out, put what we call flutes in there, you can see that sometimes as we carve along this part, we're with the grain. Sometimes when we're on this part, we're across the grain. And this part, these are going to be diagonally with the grain. It's going to be switching between the two. So this is a very interesting sort of exercise. So this is the exercise now. So it was to imagine the grain, or have the grain going in this direction. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut diagonally across it like that. So take yourself a deepish sort of gouge. We don't go too deep, and depending on the wood we'll have more or less of the effect. Now it's an important carving thing that when you carve diagonally along the wood like this, can you see that this side is really good, it's nice and smooth, but this side, because it's going against the grain, is all torn up. I hope you can see that. We've changed the lighting a little bit and coming closer, so really want you to see this. This side's torn up. That's because as I came along here, these fibres it's against the grain, so they get pulled back like this. So there's nothing you can do about that. That's tearing it up. And it would be the same if I came this direction on this side. These fibres would tear up. So what it means is that for when you're cutting diagonally, there is, if you like, a good side to the cut here, like this, and you can make the most of that. Okay, so you make the most of that, and then you have to come back the opposite direction to turn that into a good side. And your problem is, if there's a problem, is to marry as best you can these two cuts in the middle, and you do that with a little bit of a slice like this. So the exercise is to make these grooves diagonally on the grain, going on one side, and this is what you do to begin with. You do one side of the cut to the line, as we'll see when we do it on the actual carving, and then we'll do the other side on the other direction like this. So what you're doing is you're swapping hands one way and the other way, and particularly I'd like you to try some going around a corner. So draw out some shapes that are curved like this both ways. So you will be pivoting on this little bone here and pivoting back. So if you can't swap hands, then you're going to have to turn the piece around. So it's really convenient to be able to just swap the hands like that. So get used to working the grain on the diagonal, whether straight or whether curved. One of the things we need to do in this guilloche is to outline this curve here, into which we put our groove and the boss in the middle. So we really need to put a very fine line down here. What we don't want is a big fat line, and so if I was to use something like a V-tool like this, a normal everyday jobbing V-tool that we use for most of the carvings on the site, it actually produces quite a light line and not too deep. But if we swap from this 60 degrees angle to something like a 45 degree angle and a narrow one, we get a much finer line like this. Really a nice fine line. So this tool is very good for drawing. So the exercise here is to practice drawing, and what we might do is we might, from our guilloche, pull out that circle. Let's push this here. So here's a line. So when we have a line like this to follow, we have a choice. Do we go on the line, or do we go to one side or the other? It's quite important, because if we're on the line, it's very easy to wobble. So I'm going to suggest you draw a circle or draw a line, whatever, pick one side and then start following it. So the cut starts, and then you have to pivot with your hand and your body as you go around, following that groove like that. And what we're trying to get is a nice smooth line as we go around. Might make a second cut. But after we've been doing this for a while, we'll know exactly how to angle the cut and so on. So once we go around here, and it's going to become awkward, we're going to have to swap hands and come around here. So this is a very good practice for carving anyway. So we're trying to follow that line as close as we can all the way around. So for example here, I can come around here a bit more. So that way is not as good as if I'd swapped hands and was coming like this, pivoting on my bone here, my little bone on the heel of my hand. So we do one side as tight as we can, and then on the other side here. So once you've done this a few times, you can get the hang of the sort of how you can fluidly do that. It takes a little bit of work, but we're going to have to want to do this over and over again. So do a few circles like that. You can also do a few curves like this, just to play and get used to that. But you're getting used to drawing with this tool. This is a very good tool for just drawing lines. So have a go at different size circles, following, changing hands, this sort of thing. Get a bit of practice of using this tool. Here's our layout of the guilloche. In between the bands is this little area here, and it's really nice to do something with that rather than just leaving it around. So what we often do is putting a delta here. That's a little three-sided inverted pyramid. So for the exercise, we're going to just look at that, and what I've done is I've drawn a line that represents the outline of the guilloche here, and then these curves like this, and I've set them out. This is a centre line, there's a couple here, and I'm going to carve the deltas there. So I'm just setting up this little exercise of just looking at the deltas. I've used a marking gauge to score a line down here, because we will have that line definitely there. It won't be just the edge of a piece of paper. And we'll also have a line going down here where we'll have cut the ribbons. But for now, I think it's a good idea to put that one in. So the three-sided element is here. So we have 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 sides that make this inverted pyramid. So to do this, we start with a stab cut. A fishtail chisel is really good. You might need a mallet, and that will go from the corner here in the middle to nothing at that point there. And we can put a stab cut this way although it's a straight line, it's not right down to the bottom. It's just breaking up the fibres. So while we've got this tool in our hand, we'll do that. But for cutting the curves here, this curve part, we do need a curved gouge. And this is a fishtail gouge, or a spade sort of gouge, so the corner's going deep. So what I'm going to do is start here, and I'll take a bit out like this. So I'll take a bit more out. I'll come down there. So what I'm doing, let me do the other side and I'll show you it more clearly. So I'm coming down here like this. So this tool, as it's gone along, this edge here, the cutting edge, has followed this line, and the corner has ploughed its way down to what's going to be the point of that inverted pyramid. So it's a bit like a serif on lettering. So you're coming down, and we push that into there. We come down on the other side, push that into there. So we make those two cuts there. And then we come to, you see how it's sloping in? We also have to slope this back. So all these walls are sloping. Now, the problem here is that the grain of the wood might be coming down this way, or it might be going this way, we don't know, and we might go with it or against it. So I suggest you make an initial practice cut like that and just see what's happening. So just tilt it over, make a bit of a practice cut, and then when you're fairly sure about the grain, you can come along like this and take out that wall. And it might be that you have to come this way, this side here. So what you're trying to do is run the point here down that junction there into the bottom at the same time as the edge is running along here. Okay, so you might need to go back, and tidy that up. Now, a couple of things I'd say is we're really trying to get this nice edge, clean edge. I'd say that we don't want to go too deep. This is probably 3 mil, 4 mil, no, sort of an 8, 3/16, something like that. So not too deep. If you do go too deep, then what's going to happen is these corners, you're going to be messing backwards and forwards trying to get that sharp. So the best thing is just to clean it up with a skew chisel like this. But ideally, you're making one cut like this, another cut coming in here like this, and the third cut back along here with the grain, and you've got 3 nice neat little junctions there, and a nice little accent that'll go in between. So set yourself up with a few of those and have a go, and then we're ready for the actual carving itself.